Hey guys, hey, thanks for being here. Hey, I wanted to talk a little bit about today's reminders. And today's reminder that I was thinking about is you don't have to have it all figured out today. So if this is something you've been struggling with, I just kind of wanted to talk with you about this topic for a few minutes and just kind of let you know some of the things that I was thinking of for myself. So if you've not been here before, my name's Renee and I'm super happy to have you. This is Becoming Her Again, and it's today's reminders, which I try to do at least every day or every other day, just to put out, a few topics of things I'm thinking of to give you a little bit of encouragement. So, what I was thinking about, you don't have to have it all figured out today, what that actually looks like. If you have been feeling like overwhelmed and like you're not really sure what comes next in this journey, whatever your journey is that you may be going through, whether it's a healing journey, maybe you've gone through a breakup or a divorce, or you've had to move to a different state, or you become an empty nester, or whatever that looks like for you, whatever it is that you're going through. I just want you to hear me when I say that, it's okay. And like, we don't have to have everything all figured out, and especially all in one day, right? And excuse my voice, I'm getting over a little cold, but but I just wanted to let you know that, we don't always know maybe what comes next in the process. So, just some of the things that, I was kind of thinking about with this is just, how much pressure, we put on ourselves, and how we really think that we should have all of the answers figured out. Or maybe we're comparing ourselves to other people's journey and we think that they do have everything figured out, and maybe they don't. And I know just the other day I talked about that in another video. So if you haven't had a chance to check that one out, check that out when you have a chance, because so many times we try to compare ourselves to other people. But life unfolds for us a step at a time, and rarely does anyone see like the whole path ahead of them, before we go through it. And we don't always know what's coming next, right? Most of us are simply just taking the next right step. So, as we go through whatever journey this looks like for us, we're just taking what seems to be the most natural next step in our journey. So, so we're not going to have it all figured out in that day, or even maybe in the first month, or maybe even in the first few years, honestly. So, healing and growth, they're not linear. It's not a consistent straight line. It's just kind of everywhere, our healing journey and what we go through. Some days you feel really strong, and other days you feel like you're on square one, and square one is not fun to think about. You don't want to think that you're going backwards, but it doesn't always mean that you are. So, a lot of times, and I talked about this before as well, healing is, your journey's happening, and many times you just don't even see how much you've healed from something. And you may think that you're going backwards because you're having a bad day, but in all reality, you've came so many squares ahead, right? You're not on square one, you might be on square 37, right? So I just want you to remember that both of these things are part of that journey. So, feeling like you're starting over at times, and feeling like some days you're not very strong, that's both part of the journey, of the healing journey. So just remember that. But instead of focusing on forever and like looking so far ahead into the future, just try and really focus on today, because, we don't want to look in the past, right? Like everybody talks about that. We don't want to look in the rear view mirror at everything. And we also don't want to look so far ahead that like we see the horizon out there and we're just like, well, if I was just there at that horizon, then I would be much better. That's just not the case. It's like, we can't see that far in advance. We really need to just focus on right now what's in front of us and taking those small steps, because I talk about the small steps really add up, and as we stack those up, our journey and our healing becomes so much better for ourselves. So just keep that in mind, about focusing on today rather than forever. You don't need to have like a 5 year plan or even a 2 year plan. Honestly, it's too broad. It's like, you can't figure it all out, in that broad of, like that broad of amount of time. Like you really got to keep it narrowed in and focused in on today. But ask yourself too, like, what is a healthy step that you can take today? And that can be just for today, and it can be an outlook maybe just on your week. If you're going to look too far in the future, maybe just focus on what can this week look like for me that might be a little bit of an improvement compared to last week. That's an idea, but I wouldn't go much further than a week out, because it's too broad and it just brings too much, really too much anxiety to yourself, and there's no need to put all that on you. So, some small steps though that you can take, that really create big changes is, just whatever the case may be, whatever it is that you're going through, having a conversation about that maybe with a friend, and writing down some ideas of what you can do, for your week or your day. These little moments, they add up, like if you're looking for a job, right? Like you're looking for a job and you're putting out all of these resumes, and, you just keep on thinking, well, if I just put out all of the resumes today, then hopefully at the end of the week, I'll have heard back from, let's just say five companies, right? But, you don't have time in one day to put out all of the resumes. So rather than looking at it in a great big, massive amount of things, instead look at it a step at a time. Maybe this week I'm going to put out 5 resumes for the whole week. And then, as time goes on, then, 3 months from now, you've put out all of these resumes each week. So, you're talking 20 resumes a month. So that's, 60 resumes in 3 months. But you didn't have to do it all in one day. You know what I mean? So just a lot of times, like, focusing on it, the small steps and how they do create those big changes. And kind of like I said, like little steps, they really stack up, so you're doing the work, you're putting in these steps, and they're stacking up for you. So, stay focused on that for sure, and give yourself a lot of grace, because, you're really working hard by doing that. And that's impressive, and it's very exciting. So, and also just give yourself permission as you go through this, that this is a work in progress. You don't have all the answers. We don't wake up every day having all the answers, no matter what it is that we're going through. We don't have it all figured out, and we're learning along the way. This is a whole new process for us. If it's a healing journey, if say you've gone through a divorce, or you're grieving the loss of somebody, or you're grieving the loss of a job, whatever that is, you've never been through that before. And even if you have been through it before, it doesn't mean that you have been through this exact one before. So unless a person has gone through this exact same thing and walked in your shoes, then there's nobody to compare it to. And there's only enough things in each day that we can do to try to get stronger and better, and be able to give ourselves permission to be that work in progress. So, allow yourself to learn as you go through it. I mean, my journey has been learning so many things, and I'm so excited about it. But, it's tiring at times. So, just appreciate the small things that you're doing for yourself. Allow yourself to learn, allow yourself to change your mind. Maybe you don't want to do this or do that. Maybe you want to see it differently, and maybe you want the outcome to be different. So you've decided to go a different direction, and that's okay. And remember to allow yourself to grow at your own pace. Just because somebody else grows in a different way, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, maybe they're just growing differently. That doesn't mean that you're going to grow the same way as they are. You are your own individual person, and be so proud of that. Grow at your own pace, learn at your own pace, and make sure that you give yourself the love that you need, for the future. So what I want to leave you with today is just, if you're feeling uncertain about today and, just not really sure, like, what does this future look like in my life? I can't figure it out. I don't really know where to start. I don't know what the next steps are. And what happens, like, when I can't see the clear path to go forward? Like, you're asking yourself that. Just be gentle with yourself, and you are doing a lot better than you realize. And right now you may not realize that quite yet, but when you do, because it will come a day that you're going to realize how much better you're actually doing than what you realized. And when you do come across that day, you're going to remember what I said, and you're also going to realize, like, oh, I have done a lot more healing than what I realized I was actually, going through, like, and gaining this momentum of this healing process. But you're just doing so much better than you think. And I think so many times we don't give ourselves credit for that, because quite honestly, we don't really see the journey that's happened yet. We know that we've put in the work, but maybe we're not really feeling like, we've really accomplished it. So just remember, you're doing an amazing job, and you're doing so great, and you are loving yourself by doing these things. But I want to leave you with a reflection question, just to think about today, this week, whatever, is what's one small step that you can take today instead of worrying about the next 100 steps? So just a small step for today, again, to maybe make your week look a little bit different. And don't overthink it. I don't want you to think about 100 steps. I don't want you to think about all the way into the future. I just want you to look at today and this week and just keep it there. You're doing amazing, friend, and you're becoming her again, and you're doing it in the right way. You're doing it a step at a time, and I want you to be so proud of yourself. So I hope this helps, gives you a little bit of encouragement, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now, friends.